The Washington Commanders finished the 2022 regular season with an 8-1 record and missed the playoffs for the second consecutive season. The most recent playoff appearance for this franchise came back in 2020, in which they won the division title with a 7-9 record, before losing in the wild card round of the playoffs to the eventual Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This franchise's last playoff win was all the way back in the 2005 season, and it's been a long few decades for the Commanders and their fan base. But how will the 2023 season go? Well, we're going to break everything down in today's video, and for Washington, they're entering the year with 2022 5th-round pick Sam Howell as their starting quarterback. Sam started a singular game in 2022 in what was a 26-6 win over the Cowboys in Week 18. This is certainly a risky decision for them, as this could prove to be a great choice, and Sam could be a franchise quarterback, or it could prove to be a terrible decision and they could be selecting in the top 10 of the 2024 NFL Draft. But which will it be? Well, we're going to try and answer that in today's video. Now let's begin. And we are starting the Commanders preview by discussing a lot of what went wrong for them in 2022 and what they will try and not do in 2023. And specifically within this, we're going to be looking at why the Commanders lost games last year that they really shouldn't have lost, or at least by as much as they did. And for the Commanders to succeed this year, they're going to need to be better up front, as they allowed 48 sacks in 2022, and because they split time between Carson Wentz and Taylor Heinicke, this was not focused on as much by the national media, but 48 sacks would have ranked third in the NFL behind Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And within the first Philly game specifically, Carson Wentz was sacked 9 times. And whether it's Carson Wentz back there, who did make some very bad decisions at times, which we will get to later, you can't have your quarterback get sacked 9 times and expect to win, period. Pairing that with a losing turnover battle, even if it was only 1-0 and not multiple turnovers lost, the point remains that you're going to lose this game 99% of the time based on that information alone. But what really threw a wrench in Washington's game plan in that game with Philly was up by 24 points at half. It's no secret that this team is not built to play from behind, and in the 5 drives Washington had in the second half, it went punt, turnover on downs, touchdown, end of game. And how all of this plays into the 2023 Commanders preview is they're still very much not built to play from behind, but Howell can provide an element to the offense that Carson Wentz could not, and that's not turning the ball over at such a high rate. And it should not come as a coincidence that the team started winning more when Taylor Heinicke was starting, because Taylor didn't effectively throw the Commanders out of games the way Carson did. The Browns game was the worst game Carson played all year, and the 2 first-half interceptions were rookie-level mistakes. And I did an entire breakdown on this and what went wrong for Carson during the 2022 season, and the link will be in the description. But what the Commanders eventually tried to do in 2022 to combat Wentz's mistakes was to run the ball. And if that didn't work, let's run the ball some more. Washington finished 4th in the NFL in rushing attempts in 2022, and obviously if you continue to pound the rock, you're eventually going to rack up numbers by default, and they finished 12th in rushing yards as a team last year. The yards per carry is really where it reared its ugly head as to how bad the offense was, as they finished 27th in rushing yards per attempt as a team in 2022. They also finished 29th in rushing touchdowns, and for a team that ran the ball 538 times over the course of the season, to only be able to punch the ball in the end zone 9 times is historically bad. And to give you an idea of how bad that is, they were the first team since the 2012 Kansas City Chiefs to have 500 carries or more in a season and not have 10 or more rushing touchdowns. And that 2012 Chiefs team finished 2-14, finished dead last in points per game as they were on their way to averaging just 13.2 per game. That's how inefficient the Commanders were at getting the ball in the end zone last year. And if Sam Howell can play even league average this year, that should improve really by default, because it's almost impossible to be that inefficient in back-to-back years. And not only that, but they are expecting the emergence of second-year receiver Jahan Dotson, who had over 500 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns in his rookie year. Predicting two players in Dotson and veteran Terry McLaurin to both go for 1,000 yards in the same offense, with a quarterback who's thrown 19 career passes, to me at least, is a very hot take. And while I won't go on record and say that will happen, I think both Terry and Jahan are going to have solid years. And forcing defenses to deal with 2 receivers rather than Terry and whoever the team throws out there as the second option stresses defenses out because it takes away from the run defense. And as simple as this sounds, some of the Commanders' offensive philosophy in 2022 was as simple as, we don't want to throw the football, not because we don't trust Terry or anybody else to go make a play, but because it's a risk to throw the football with the quarterbacks we have. The Commanders finished 6th in the NFL in interceptions offensively last year, despite throwing the ball the 20th most times. And if Sam Howell is going to have any success, not just in 2023, but beyond 2023 as well, he has to be more efficient than what Commanders quarterbacks were last year. And I do think Howell is going to have some success this year. By season's end, if he plays all 17 games, that is, I do think he'll be in the 3,700 yard, 22 touchdown area, and that receiver Terry McLaurin will go for 1,000 yards for the 4th consecutive season. And for the Commanders fans that have rode with Terry since his rookie season all the way back in 2019, I really hope this is the start of stable quarterback play for him. As for Jahan Dotson, he only played 12 games last year, and had he kept the pace he was on within those 12 games, he would have had nearly 750 yards and 10 touchdowns. And for him this year, I think he'll be right around 60 receptions for 850 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns. I don't think this offense is going to be in the top 4 or 5 by any means, but they can and will win games if they don't commit silly turnovers. And in a weird way, that was kind of their strategy in 2022. Basically to keep the game close, and in the 4th quarter, anything can happen. Now, when you go out to San Francisco and give up 37 points on the road and lose the turnover battle, you're not going to win that game as the Washington Commanders, or at least the 2022 Washington Commanders. But when you go to Philly and win the turnover battle and keep their big bad offense in check, you are going to go out on top there. And by being a pain in the ass to opposing teams, the Commanders can squeak out more wins than you think. Remember, if they beat the Giants last year in a game they tied, and they beat the Vikings in a close game they lost last year, or even the Titans game for that matter, all of a sudden this 8-1 team becomes a double-digit win team. And the big thing for them this year is they can't afford any slip-up games. And a perfect example of this is Week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. It is widely recognized that the 2023 Arizona Cardinals are not going to be a very good team, and that they will probably be selecting in the top 5 of the 2024 NFL Draft. And if everything goes right for them, Caleb Williams will be a Cardinal 1 year from now, meaning the Commanders can't slip up in Week 1 and lose to an inferior team. After that, it gets tough for Washington, as no game is ever easy in Denver. Then they come home to play Buffalo, then go to Philly in Week 4, who most definitely wants revenge from that Monday night game last year. And Washington's biggest strength, which of course is the defensive line, is going to have to be on in all of these games. They were a very good unit last year, led by the 2 big boys in the middle in Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. Each went to the Pro Bowl and are in their primes. And Montez Sweat had a good year too, as he had 28 quarterback hits and 8 sacks. Former number 2 overall pick Chase Young is now in a contract year as the team declined his 5th-year option, and I think that will benefit the Commanders more than it ever has, because this is a true prove-it year for him. And the situation Chase is in, entering from a defensive line's perspective, is something I like to compare what Joe Burrow has as a quarterback. Burrow, of course, has Chase, Higgins, and Boyd to throw the football to, and Chase Young has multiple Pro Bowlers along the defensive line to not only help his game out, but to take the offensive line's responsibility and focus away from him. And if he's going to produce or get back to the player he was in 2020, for the Commanders at least, it's going to be this year. It is now or never for Chase Young. And in terms of untapped potential and seeing what a team can truly maximize, I don't think we've seen the best of what we can see from the Washington Commanders defensive line, because they truly have 4 Pro Bowl caliber defensive linemen, and we've hardly seen them all play together over the past few years. If all 4 of these guys play together for all 17 games, then this is going to be a very difficult team to play, because they will get after your quarterback and push the pocket, and with Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen in the middle, good luck trying to run the football at them. Opposing offenses are going to have to resort to screens, slants, quick outs, and any and all quick routes to get the ball out before their quarterback gets drilled. And what plays into this perfectly from a defensive perspective? Corners that are ball hawks and guys that get a lot of interceptions. And who did the Commanders draft in the first round this past year? Corner Emmanuel Forbes, who has the NCAA all-time record for pick sixes. And how Washington's season is going to play out goes back to the title of today's video. They are risking it all on Sam Howell. I really love this defense and everything they can do as a unit, if they can stay healthy this year, that is. Will they, of course, is something else, but if they do, and as I record this team is getting sold from Dan Snyder, and to that I say raise your glass, but if the Commanders stay healthy, why couldn't they get 10 wins if they had 8 last year with Carson Wentz as their quarterback for half the season, who certainly did not help this team? We discussed the running game earlier and how often they ran the football last year, but the running backs themselves, as in Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, are going to have to play the best football of their careers this year, and if they don't, it's pretty simple. One, if not both of them, will be replaced next year, and that'll be that. The running back position is valued a lot less from a front office standpoint, and there really is no room for error from current running backs, because they will be replaced quicker than any other position, maybe aside from a kicker who misses 3 or 4 field goals in one game. The division rival Eagles have a very difficult schedule, because when you finish first in the division, you play other teams that finish first in their division the following year. So having said that, the Commanders' schedule isn't anywhere close to as difficult as what the Eagles is, and there's not many games where you can immediately rule the Commanders out and circle them as an easy win. Yes, they'll probably lose in Seattle and in Dallas and those types of games, but if they don't commit stupid penalties and play disciplined football, and most importantly, turnover-free football, Washington is very much a team you do not want to mess around with. They're a team you want to put away early, because the longer the fight goes, the more likely it is to go in their favor. Will they make the playoffs this year? Probably not. Could they? Of course, and if they do, this is the exact type of team nobody wants to play when January rolls around. No offensive line is going to want to play Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, and Montez Sweat with the season on the line. Nobody is willingly signing up for that, and if they can get to the dance, and if Sam Howell has a big year, anything can happen. The team MVP, breakout player, team ceiling, and team floor are on the screen, and I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as only about 32% of people watching are subscribed, and it makes a big difference. Until next time, please be safe, and have a great day. Love you guys.